All right, welcome back, 8th graders. I am just so incredibly excited to be with you today. We're going to jump right into a brand new explainer that is honestly going to completely change the way you look at the books, the articles, and the assignments you're reading for class. Today, we're talking about making text-to-world connections. And my big goal for you by the end of this lesson is to show you that reading isn't just about, understanding words on a page. It's about understanding the very world you live in.
Now, I want you to be totally honest with me for a second. Have you ever been assigned a reading in class? Maybe a history chapter or a really long novel, and you just thought to yourself, okay, does what we read in class actually matter in the real world? It's a completely fair question. It is so easy to feel like your reading assignments only exist inside the four walls of our classroom, right? Like they literally only matter for passing a quick quiz on Friday. But today, I am going to challenge you to totally shatter those walls. We're going to see how the exact words you read are deeply, powerfully connected to the world unfolding right outside your window.
So here is a quick look at our roadmap for today's explainer. Number 1, making text-to-world connections. 2, why real-world connections matter. 3, seeing danger through biblical foresight. 4, how to connect the dots. 5, your turn with the homework. And finally, number 6, wrapping up with the Godly Learner's philosophy.
Okay, let's dive right into section 1. Making text-to-world connections. Defining the big idea.
So what exactly are we talking about when we say text-to-world? Well, a text-to-world connection means linking the ideas, events, or issues in whatever you're reading to real-world events, trends, or global topics. Now, earlier in your education, you probably learned all about text-to-self connections, right? Like reading about a character who has a pet dog and saying, hey, I have a dog too. And look, that's great, but as 8th graders, we're really leveling up here. We are looking way beyond our own personal lives. We're looking at how a text speaks to massive global issues, political trends, cultural shifts, and major historical events. You're basically taking the core theme of a book and mapping it directly onto the real world.
Moving right along to section 2. Why real-world connections matter. Purpose beyond the classroom. You might be wondering, why even put in the effort to do this? Like, why does it actually matter? Well, seeing how a text connects to the real world gives your reading a genuine purpose beyond the classroom. It is definitely not just busy work. When you do this, you're actively applying lessons learned from literature, from history, or from informational texts, straight to current events and societal issues. And this just brilliantly illustrates why critical thinking is so vital. Because by making these connections, you're sharpening your mind. You start analyzing whether a message written, say, 100 years ago still applies today. You start comparing how people in the past responded to a crisis versus how we respond today. And most importantly, you learn to predict future outcomes based on the past. You actually become an active participant in history, not just a passive reader.
All right, section 3, seeing danger, biblical foresight, wisdom in action. Now, this whole concept, it isn't just an academic skill. It actually connects directly to a biblical worldview. Proverbs chapter 22, verse 3 says, "The prudent sees danger and hides himself, but the simple go on and suffer for it." Let's actually break that down for a second. Being prudent means being wise, careful, and having really good judgment. The simple person, well, they just walk blindly into the future and end up getting hurt by repeating the exact same mistakes of the past. But the prudent person, they use knowledge, including the amazing knowledge they gain from reading, to foresee issues and to act wisely. So when you connect what you read about history or human nature to the real world, you are literally practicing biblical prudence. You're learning to spot danger, spot bad ideas, and spot recurring problems so you can make truly wise choices.
Which brings us to section 4, how to connect the dots, from vague to specific. Let's get into the practical how-to of actually connecting these dots, moving from kind of vague ideas to sharp, specific insights. When you're asked, hey, what events or issues does this topic connect to? I need you to be specific. A weak connection sounds kind of like this. Oh, this reminds me of politics. Now, come on, that's a lazy answer. It doesn't really tell us anything at all. An 8th grade level, strong connection sounds more like this. This text's argument about centralized power parallels the specific debate happening right now in our state legislature about leadership and taxation. Do you hear the difference there? You want to use world connections to truly test a text's ideas. So, if a historical speech talks about national unity, don't just say it's about unity. Compare it specifically to how leaders today are talking about unity in the news. Let's look at a few worked examples to really lock this in. Here's our first one. A modern parallel. Imagine your assigned text as a fictional novel about a city recovering from a massive natural disaster. Your world connection could absolutely be the real-life rebuilding efforts happening literally right now after a recent hurricane you saw in the news. The explanation? Well, both the book and the real world show the exact same challenges in finding temporary housing, distributing really scarce resources, and dealing with the deep emotional recovery of the citizens. The fiction is actually teaching you empathy and understanding for reality.
Let's try another one, a historical pattern. Say your text is a nonfiction account of the Great Depression from way back in the 1930s. The world connection? Economic recessions happening right now in the 21st century. And why does this work? Because you can find fascinating similarities in how unemployment spikes, how everyday people panic, and how governments respond. By reading about the Great Depression, you essentially have a cheat code for understanding recurring economic challenges in your own lifetime.
And here's a really good social issue example. Let's say your text is a news article about a small rural town struggling with clean water access. The world connection there is the massive global initiatives run by international organizations trying to provide safe drinking water in developing nations. The connection here perfectly illustrates how a very local, specific case study in your reading reflects a massive worldwide need. Suddenly, that short little article isn't just about one town, it's a window into a massive global crisis.
Okay, Section 5, your turn, the homework, putting it into practice.
So it is officially time to put all of this into practice, and I promise you, you absolutely have the tools to do this successfully. Here is your step-by-step mission for this explainer. First, you're going to identify a recent news story that connects to a major theme in our current reading. Second, write a short paragraph explaining exactly what that connection is, and remember, be specific. Third, compare how the text portrays the issue to how people are discussing it today. Fourth, I want you to find one difference between the text setting and your real-world example, because history rhymes, but it rarely repeats exactly. And finally, step 5, suggest one way the ideas in the text could actually inform or maybe even help solve the current event.
Finally, Section 6, the Godly Learner's Philosophy, Anchoring Your Mind. As we wrap up today's explainer, I want to look at the very heartbeat of why we teach this way at HeroesMart Academy. Romans chapter 8, verse 6 teaches us, "For to be carnally minded is death, but to be spiritually minded is life and peace." Now, what does that have to do with reading comprehension? Well, honestly, everything. Your mind is an incredibly powerful tool, but what you center your mind on ultimately determines your path. If you just consume information with a carnal, worldly mindset, it leads nowhere good. But when you pair your academic knowledge with spiritual wisdom, when you keep your mind spiritually minded, it leads to life, to peace, and to real impact. The absolutely crucial point here is this. HeroesMart Academy intertwines biblical morality with education because, frankly, education without morality can actually hurt people. Just think about it. Some of the most destructive people in history were incredibly intelligent, but they completely lacked a moral compass. Knowledge and intelligence should help you make wise, God-honoring choices rather than simply making you more capable of doing things. We want you to pursue academic excellence, absolutely, but always, always while keeping your mind centered on God, on truth, on wisdom, and on righteous choices. And that brings me to my final, really big question for you today. As you open your books tonight and look at your assignments, I want you to ask yourself this. Will you use your reading to simply pass a test on Friday, or are you going to use it to gain the wisdom to actually impact the world? The choice is entirely yours. So, dive into those texts, find those connections, be prudent, and let's change the world together. Have a great time with your homework, and I will see you in the next lesson.